welcome to La Vida Las Vegas podcast. We're two physical therapists living the life in Las Vegas. I'm Dr. Erica.
And I'm Dr. Joe. We created this podcast for two reasons. First, to connect the healthcare, wellness, and fitness communities in Las Vegas. And second, to highlight all the amazing people we've met along the way.
Thank you for listening, and remember to take care of yourself.
Welcome to the show.
Nice.
If you want to introduce yourself and tell us what you do.
Sure. My name is Bobby Moore. I'm a chiropractor in Las Vegas, Nevada. I also do some coaching at Irontown CrossFit in my spare time.
So what brought you to Las Vegas?
Originally came to Las Vegas after I graduated chiropractic school. Throughout chiropractic school, they teach you there should be a curve in your neck, curve in the mid-back, curve in the lower back. Then when I started asking, well, what if there's not, no one really had a good answer for me. So I went to the library, pulled out this book, and just started reading, and I found this technique, if you will. It's called Chiropractic Biophysics. And essentially it uses mirror image exercises and tractions and adjusting to put a curve back in the spine if needed, or help with the scoliosis. It's pretty neat stuff. But anyways, I started reading their textbooks, got really into it, went to a seminar and had the opportunity to come work for one of the highest instructors in that specific technique in Vegas here. And here I am.
So you came out here for additional knowledge and then ended up staying career-wise. That's pretty cool. I haven't heard of someone doing that for any of our guests yet.
You know, my wife and I, we grew up in Pennsylvania, outside Pittsburgh, and all of our family's still back there, but we didn't like the cold, so we were kind of eager to get out away from that. Now it's a little bit on the other extreme. The heat's a little too much nowadays, but we like it. Yeah.
So what do you do to spend your time in Vegas when you're not coaching or working clinically?
Well, now that we have the kids, that takes up the vast majority of our time. When I do have some free time, I like to get out and do some hiking, backpacking, camping, off-roading if I can.
Excellent. And what's something that you just enjoy doing besides like that? Like, what do you do to relax?
You're gonna make fun of me. I play video games.
Do you?
Yeah.
Awesome.
I like to read and educate myself. But if you really want to know the true answer, I play video games.
Heck yeah, man. What do you play?
Right now, I'm playing Dark Souls.
Okay. Are you Xbox, PlayStation?
PlayStation.
Okay. Dark Souls, that came out a little while ago, right?
Yeah. I got into, I don't know if we want to really go down this rabbit hole. Sure. When I started playing, my friend bought me a game from that maker is called Bloodborne. I got into that. It took me a minute to get into it. It was a really high learning curve. Got into that. Then after that, I bought the third Dark Souls. And then just recently, I'm playing the original one.
Nice. And that game's real punishing, right? Like if you die, you lose all your stuff.
It's
not very forgiving.
It's not forgiving at all. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Love that.
Big challenge.
What got you into coaching and CrossFit?
Kind of always went hand in hand with my practice philosophy. I was never the straight chiropractor where it's spine adjustments only. I know there's a big picture. I want to help the big picture. I really wanted to help people any way possible, whether it's through chiropractic, whether it's through exercise. I personally think exercise is the best medicine from whatever healthcare standpoint you look at a person. And I feel that over the years, the different workout routines and exercise regimens that I've done personally, CrossFit has been my favorite because it's just like the what do they call it? Their mission statement. Mm-hmm. Constantly varied functional fitness performed at a high intensity across multiple modalities. I think that's the best exercise routine or regimen, have you. CrossFit gym opened up nearby that practice and just walked over one day. I had been doing CrossFit personally for probably about 4 or 5 years prior, just in my own time, and signed up there, did that for a year or two, and then they asked me to be a coach. And the rest is history.
I love that. So what's up? So for chiropractic, and there's a lot of similar things that PTs and chiropractors in that realm. So how would you say it's like chiropractic is different?
Yeah, I was surprised you guys are asking me to be on this, actually, because I know I don't, and I know you guys don't, but some PTs and chiros don't get along, and I think that's a ridiculous topic for another day. But, you know, I the way I look at it is I feel like as a chiropractor, and not to discredit any kind of spinal treatment you guys do, I feel like I can, as a chiropractor, we can, you know, adjust very well, very proficiently. And again, not saying you guys can't or do anything like that. You guys are probably a little bit better at rehabbing it and the different modalities to rehab it. But I feel, you know, there's a very gray area. I don't think it's black and white. But yeah, that's kind of all I got.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tough question.
Yeah, so if you look at the curriculum of physical therapy, it's 3 years, and you can look at, you know, you go through your basic anatomy, physiology, neuro, you know, go on. But with chiropractic, you have 4 years of school, correct? Or
it depends. It's pretty similar. The program I did was 3 and a third year trimester, so it was 10 total trimesters. So it was a little over 3 years if you go straight through. It's 4 years if you take summers off.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Like a normal.
So that'd be similar to ours too then.
Probably.
We went 3
years, but with summers.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's probably, I think it's very similar.
Oh, I never knew that actually.
Mhm.
I thought it was 4.
You know, a lot of people think it's a weekend course.
For us too.
Yeah. Oh, you just like got it over the weekend, right?
Yeah.
For you spent like 24 hours on it. Yep, that was just.
And I'm sure you guys get this all the time, but I get it all the time. I watched this video over the weekend, and can you help me do this? I do it to my dad all the time, and I'm like, oh my God, please don't. For your dad's sake.
Yeah, we get a lot of that as well. Like do it yourself. Like, well, on YouTube they said this thing,
Right.
and WebMD says this. So which one's right?
Right.
Like, I don't know. Probably. Let's see what you have
Probably
going on
neither.
first, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, that's a common thing. As far as what would you say the main differences that you would believe between PT and chiro? Because I honestly don't quite know.
You know, and I could answer the same way. I'm not 100% sure. I think it varies case to case. I don't know if this is how the physical therapy realm is, but chiropractors have a big spectrum of practitioners. Whether you're very philosophical, the adjustment is almost a holy thing to them, or sacred. And then you have people where I like to put my category in is more scientific-based, evidence-based. Adjustments do a lot of great things, but there's muscles, there's ligaments, there's tendons, there's other things that go into a human body and correcting a dysfunction or a problem, what have you. So I think it depends who you ask. Me personally, I think it's a pretty big gray area, and I think there's a lot of overlap.
Same here. I've also noticed, just like with PTs, there's a big difference between like the older generation and the newer generation. So if you look at the newer generation of PTs, like a lot of them are like people might say they're exercise based, but it's like, what does that mean? Like, are you like functional exercises? Or are you more like strength and conditioning type, or are you just giving someone a band to pull on 50 times? Sure. But I've noticed that even while we were in school, a lot more people are like more active with what they're doing. Like a lot of them work out, do CrossFit, things like that, and they integrate that in their treatments. And I've noticed too with chiros, some of the ones that we've met that were younger as well, it's the same thing. Like you said, that yours is more like an exercise-based thing. I'm finding more and more that seems to be more common rather than the older traditional route.
Absolutely. And even in the school I went to was Palmer in Davenport, Iowa, and I took a soft tissue elective. And there's actually some people there that look down on people that do that elective because it's not straight chiropractic, which again I think is ridiculous. However, you know, everyone has entitled their opinion.
Yeah, and I would figure too, if there was one exact thing that always worked 100% of the time, that would be what every school would teach.
Right.
I mean, I would think if they want people to be good when they leave, right?
Right. Yeah.
So I don't know. That's probably why there is so much overlap. A lot of different ways to skin cats, right?
Absolutely. And you look at you could also ask the same question to a medical doctor with an MD degree versus a DO degree. Mm-hmm. You know, there's a lot of overlap there, but there's still some differences.
That's true. And what do you think is like the main disconnect between that spectrum? is it because of the older generation, or is it like certain schools teach different things, or, what do you think is that influence?
It's a great question. I think a lot of it is personal belief. It can also be just kind of what people get stuck down in there. They plant their flag and no one else can tell me otherwise. And some people just aren't open to new ideas and changes, and they always want to believe what they know and what they do day in and day out is the right thing, and no one else can tell them otherwise. But that doesn't go for the whole profession, and I think honestly it's a small percentage that are like that. So I don't want to paint that broad picture that they're all like that.
Yeah, for sure.
So as far as your particular niche, what do you do specifically then?
Right now, personally, I'm an independent contractor with a personal injury company. So I mainly treat soft tissue injuries, mainly car accidents, like whiplash, disc injuries, and like slips and falls on occasion. That's probably 75% of the patient base I have. But I do have a lot of being a CrossFit coach. I do have a lot of sports injuries, chronic conditions that people, they want to get healthy, they want to get back to their high school days, and now that they're in their 30s, 40s, they're deconditioned, and they get back into that exercise routine, and things start barking back at them. So I do a little bit more like functional medicine with that kind of stuff.
So we did have a guest join us on the mini break.
Say hello. First podcast.
Crushing it.
Yep.
Yes.
Already going to be a star. So we left off with, we were talking about the differences between PTs and chiros and how it seems like both realms are moving more towards like performance-based. I guess a lot of people are just figuring out that really making people move seems to be pretty helpful in general.
And you said it perfectly. I think more than one way to skin a cat is the best way to describe that.
And I've learned more and more too, like some stuff it'll sound bizarre at first, and then like the more you learn, you're like, oh, like that's actually probably pretty plausible. Like we learn more and more about how the nervous system interacts. Like just ridiculous things can happen with like referred pain, and people come in because they're like, oh, my finger is hurt, and it's really just something in their neck or their shoulder that's getting pinched a little bit, and then seems like magic, but it makes sense when you start learning.
Yeah, when you look at the big picture, the whole picture, it's like, oh yeah, why didn't I think of that, or something.
For sure.
When you think too about the types of treatments or the injuries that you see now with like car accidents, for example, it's typically a traumatic injury. So I think it's a little different than our normal like wear and tear or like these are the injuries that you're getting because of your lifestyle modifications or whatever. So can you tell us a little bit more about like car accidents and like those whiplash type of events? Because if you're going 65 miles an hour, I mean, going 10 is fast, but still like going 65 and multiplying or even more if you've seen more accidents that are probably have ridiculous stories behind it. Like, tell us a little bit more about that.
What's real interesting, a real interesting point I'll make first is with cars nowadays, they're designed to crumple. So up to, I can't remember. I think there was a study like at two cars colliding at like 5 or 10 miles per hour, the passenger gets more G-forces onto their body than like a 45 or 35, 45 miles per hour collision, because again, the car's designed nowadays to absorb that impact, where at low speeds it's really not, so the person takes the brunt of it. And I've seen it multiple times in practice where, someone's hit 35, 40 miles per hour, and they have their injuries, but then someone will be like, come in, oh, it was just a parking lot, someone backed into me, I wasn't even moving, didn't have my foot on the brake, but man, I got this radiating pain, my hand's numb, I don't know why my hand's numb, like, it's wild, and I usually have that conversation once a month about that, but in your point, a lot of it is just, is facet and disc mediated pain for the most part, especially with any kind of like whiplash type injury. A lot of soft tissue, obviously, just a lot of soft tissue. And what's neat in certain cases is that we can, if a car accident happens pretty frequent or pretty acute, like day or two prior, I find that the sooner we can get them treated, the faster we get the results. And I'm sure you guys see that as well. The more chronic a condition, the longer it takes to get them well.
Oh, for sure. And I think, too, the more chronic something becomes, people get a certain level of used to it. Mm-hmm. And then when you're trying to ask them about their symptoms, they almost haven't even considered it recently. Yeah. Because they've had it for years, and they're just like, it always bothers me. I don't really know how to tell you what aggravates it anymore.
Yeah, and that's frustrating on our end.
Yeah. Well, I think
they talk about that's just normal.
Well, people think too that they just lay on the table and you're like, oh, let's see, I'm gonna wave my hand over you, and then this is exactly the knee problem that you have.
It's like Star Wars, where they have this thing.
Right.
Oh, there's the problem.
Yeah. Well, I tell people what you tell us is really important because it gives us clues to try and determine what's going on.
Absolutely, and to go back to what we were talking about previously, just taking a good history, I think makes a better clinician than how much knowledge you have on treating certain things, because you just don't know. You don't know. Some people you have to know what to ask the right questions. Mm-hmm.
So going back to the car example, so you're saying that since cars are made to crumple at a certain speed, if it doesn't hit that certain speed, it doesn't crumple, and then more force is transferred into the passenger?
I mean, like I said, it's not my study or anything. It's just what I've read. But yeah, I've seen that.
I can see that too. It's like, I've been in a car accident before, and you get scared afterwards. Yeah. And I wasn't driving, so it just being in that type of force and capacity, like it just goes so quickly, but it's so slowly at the same time. Like if you ever seen something where you're like, I know this is coming, but it's like, and then it's fast after that, but you can see it like kind of. Actually, this is a great conversation because Joe and I were driving on the freeway, and we saw this bike, and the circles were kind of going, and we're like, I was looking at it, I was like, I think I know what a normal like tied down bike looks like in general. It's like it shouldn't be moving, and it shouldn't be next minute or next second, and you see this bike just tumble off of that of that car. But you find things that like what you find is normal, right? Or like that something's kind of what you expect it to be. And then I was like, I'm so glad that I was paying attention to that because that thing would have smashed our windshield, and who knows, like we could have gotten.
You had to swerve out of the way, or what happened?
I think I did swerve out of the way. I was like, oh my God. And I swerved out of the way. I knew that like people weren't not me to the side, but I watched that thing bounce up and down in my rear mirror, and it was crazy just to see that trajectory. But like that's I think that thing happens in a car accident. You realize like the implications of what you're doing when you're driving to some of the things that you see in your everyday practice.
Absolutely. I mean, and just I think people take for granted the speed at which we can travel nowadays in a car. I mean, if you're going just 65, which most people don't go on the highways here, like if you're driving 65 on the highways here, you're going slow.
Yeah, you're in that very right lane.
But you close your eyes for 2 seconds, you've gone, I mean, I don't even know how far, but you know what I'm getting at. It's just wild.
Oh, for sure. And then now they're making cars like the Teslas accelerate at just a ridiculous rate. Like they're saying that if you start at a red light, you can be 60 miles an hour by the time you're through the intersection.
That's wild.
With how fast cars can even accelerate, you think that would be an even bigger variable for a lot of those things.
Yeah, that's wild. The engineering that goes into their engines and transmissions are pretty wild.
I like too that you brought that point of the sooner you can get treated, typically the better outcomes. What goes on in that process of what you feel like is why that's the case?
I think it's a lot of person to person, and right after an accident, it can take a couple of days for symptoms to show up. So you get a lot of people that are, I'm fine, it'll be, and then once they do start to get symptoms, it'll be better in a week, and then I get the people in there that are middle aged. And they don't remember, or they don't forget that they're not in their teens or early 20s anymore. They don't heal as fast. And then 3, 4, 5 weeks later, like, why am I still having this pain? So finally they come in, and people are busy. Life happens. Most people don't take time and appreciate their health and be proactive about their health, like we are for the most part. So I think that has a lot to do with it.
I think too, it's people assume that rest fixes everything. They're like, oh, this shoulder thing came up and it started hurting when I was pushing overhead, but I just rested, but it still came back. Right. It's like, well, maybe there's some reason,
right?
Why that is. But it's also like you're saying about the waiting thing. Yeah. I can't think of a single time where we've seen someone or heard a story where we're like, we're really glad you waited 2 years before you came in and got this checked out. Perfect. Like that was just the right amount of time to let that marinate.
Yeah. Or when you're talking about something like you said, like pressing overhead or something, it's like, oh, I rested it before and it got better. Why is it back?
Right. And we make the analogy, like if you have like a nail in your foot, like if you step on a nail, it's like the same thing. You like rest it, it'll start feeling better, but as you start walking again,
that's perfect.
It comes right back.
I've never heard that. That's perfect.
Imaging of it, take Tylenol.
Nail's
like the nail's still there. Yeah.
I love it.
So gotta get that claw hammer and pull it out, right? So what's your favorite cheat meal?
Pizza. Absolutely pizza. Pizza or wings. Yeah, and then, speaking local, have you guys gone to Pizza Rocks?
Pizza Rocks?
Yeah, it's downtown.
Oh, I haven't been yet, but I hear good things about it.
A few people recommended that place. Now we're going to
place.
definitely go check it out for sure.
Absolute favorite place.
What do you get there?
Everything. Everything's really good. Yeah, honestly, and I hate to be that person, but everything's really good. If I had to pick just one, like, good, just general basic pizza, like not getting too fancy, what do they have? It's called the New Yorker.
Okay.
It's just the general, like, pepperoni cheese sauce, but it's so amazing.
What's good about it? Is it the crust, the sauce? What is it?
Gosh, it's like what's the saying, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, or whatever. It's not one specific thing.
Good. Okay. I love it.
So what's something that you've learned that you wish you knew sooner?
The first would be start paying your student loans earlier. I would say that, but it kind of to elaborate or touch again what we were talking about earlier is just look at the big picture. Where the pain isn't typically where the problem is, or not all the time, but it's very rarely just textbook where my shoulder hurts, my neck hurts. It's just a neck or shoulder problem versus has it been going on for multiple months, years? Are there other compensating things? Have you developed different muscle and motor pathways to compensate for this? So now, we can get that pain down, but is it going to come back because you favor it for so long? Just that, looking at the whole picture and just taking into account what they do on a daily basis too. Because you get people too, you'll treat them, you'll get them on some sort of plan, feeling better, and then it turns out, they go, they hold a jackhammer all day, every day, and they don't make the connection that might have an impact on their shoulder or their elbow because they've been doing it for 20 years. But that, and not even, like when I say the big picture, it's not even just their whole body, but like their lifestyle. What factors of their lifestyle could be affecting this injury as well.
That's interesting. I think like talking about what people do on a daily basis, and it's funny because when people start to feel good, like you help people with pain relief in general, then you're like, oh yeah, like I just forgot that wasn't even a thing. So I think that's a factor when we always like kind of load people back into things. It's like, hey, just because you feel good
doesn't mean you are good.
Yeah.
And that's a big hurdle for a lot of people to get over that aren't, I'd say, in like the healthcare, the medical, not even the medical, but like the rehab, the rehab field. Yeah. What do you have to say about that?
He's like, I agree, man. Like,
he's like, yes.
And we've almost learned just to preface that when we first see someone, just to tell them you'll get symptom relief first. It doesn't mean that you're completely fine, but a lot of times if people are going to drop off, then that's where they're going to take off. Like once they start feeling a little bit better, they're like, oh, I'm good. Now I can go back to deadlifting 400 pounds again.
Right,
like,
yeah.
A few steps before you get to that.
Totally.
Yeah, we talk about tissue healing too. I mean, I think that's a big piece that, we should just talk about in general. Like, if you look at any type of big surgical things like Achilles tendon repairs or ACL repairs, it's like very known that it takes people a year plus to recover from that.
Right.
But I feel like in any other part of or like type of tissue problems, be like, oh yeah, they messed up their knee, it's fine. And then you see the reports on like ESPN or whatever. It's like they did something. It's like, all right, they're not going to magically get better in 2 days after that. Like that tissue is not going to heal in 2 days. And no matter who you are, I don't care who you are, but what kind of injection that you're going to put into that person.
Totally.
It doesn't beat that time of tissue healing.
No, and you know, I have this conversation with a lot of my patients too. Is like, you're gonna heal. It's just not gonna be as fast as you want it to be, and it never is, right? Especially if you look at athletes, like they can give them a cortisone injection, they feel better, but that tissue's not healed.
Yeah, I mean, like I like to use that example when I talk to people about. All right, Klay Thompson, you know Klay Thompson, basketball player.
Yeah.
He tore his ACL first, and then he tore his Achilles after that. Is that right? Yeah. He's been out for like 2 years, but did one thing happen after the other? Like, was his? I don't know. It's hard to say. Like he's definitely working with a lot of people, but there's also a lot of tissue healing things that are not addressed, and you forget how you move in general with after the fact. Like, it's not always that you're going to be 100% and you're going to feel comfortable moving into those loads again.
I mean, I have a personal story with that. When high school, I did football and everything, but then I got into rugby, and rugby was really my sport that I played through college and played at Division I level in chiropractic school as well. And in the second year I was playing, second or third year, I fractured my third metatarsal on my left foot. Didn't let it heal properly. Still bugs me to this day. However, with that being said, because of the years of favoring that, I've destroyed my right ankle. Inverted it, everted it, tore it a bunch of times. It's become my bad leg now because me personally, I think just because I favored that left fracture for so long, and I still do because, every morning it hurts because I didn't let it heal properly.
Oh, man. So rugby that's a different beast too. So you can tell us about what rugby as a sport, like, just tell us more about rugby.
You know, it was for a minute catching on a little bit more in the United States, and I was really happy for that. And it still is. I was on the medical staff for the Sevens tournament that they do here in Vegas. I think it's in San Diego now. They like to move it around different cities. But it's a lot of fun, and I've always liked it personally because it's constant. It's not like football where it's play, you recoup, which is a totally different sport altogether. And it's almost like a chess match where you can look at your pieces, strategize, attack this way. That didn't work. Let's see what we're going to do next play, which is awesome. I love football as well, but it's more like a soccer or hockey where it's fast paced. It's high impact. It's exciting. What are some of the most exciting plays in football are that last play where they're tossing it behind them, trying to get that last score in.
Yeah.
That's like an entire match of rugby. So there's that aspect. And me personally playing both football and rugby, I've always liked how I felt better after a rugby match, surprisingly, because you're not running into a bunch of plastic and helmets and shoulder pads all for a full game. It just, for the most part, it's person on person. So I've always felt better, actually, after a rugby match.
Oh, yeah.
I think people have made the argument that since football players are wearing all this gear, that it makes them feel more like they can really run into people harder, whereas if you did not have that, then you'd be a little bit more concerned about running into somebody.
Absolutely. It's so much easier tackling someone full speed and with a helmet, putting your head on the ball, how they used to teach, to make that fumble. But you would never do that in a rugby match. You'd kill yourself.
Right. For rugby, I can never understand what the rules are or what's going on. If I watch a rugby game, I couldn't tell you if what just happened was good.
It's not as complicated as you would think.
Oh, really?
Actually, but I'm certainly no referee or educator, and I don't even know the rules very well, to be honest. But,
even as a player?
And you played it?
Yeah, but I played it for a while.
Yeah.
I'll admit that. But it's a completely different sport. And a lot of people ask me it's like football, right? And I'd actually say it's more closer to like hockey or soccer because it's fast paced. You're always trying to move the ball. There's no forward passing. You can only advance the ball by either you can kick it forward, which is neat, which is a neat part of it, but also for like soccer, for example, if you kick it out of bounds, the other team gets a throw in or a line out. In rugby, it's called. So they have that. There's that. At any point, you can drop kick it off the ground through the post and score immediately that way. When you do score a try, It's not like football where you just have to pass the plane. You have to physically touch it down to the ground. So it gets exciting when you're at that 5 meter line trying to punch it in, but the other team, the defense, can get under it and actually hold it up, and it doesn't count. So there's a lot of little neat parts of it like that. And then there's different types of rugby. There's 15s, which is 15 on 15. Then there's 7s, which is 7 on 7. It's a lot faster. There's not as much tackling. It's more ball and running work, and it's faster. It's a faster game, so it's 7-minute halves, whereas a 15s match is 45-minute halves.
That's a lot longer.
Yeah, there's more players, so it's slower. It's much slower moving, and it's more. See that like a 15s would be more closely related to an American football because there's forwards and backs, kind of like a line and special or like the specialty players like running backs, wide receivers, quarterbacks, and whatnot. So in rugby they have the forwards, which do a lot of the tackling, a lot of the rucking, a lot of the protection of the ball, and the scrum as well if a penalty happens. And the backs are the ones that are really whipping it out. They're the fast ones, like the running backs, the wide receivers, the specialty players, really trying to advance the ball and score.
So how, which one's the one that's more competed, like with the 15s or the 7s? Like what's the main competition of, like?
That's a good question. Both.
Oh really? Oh, okay,
Yeah.
so it can just be.
You know, there's the World Sevens tournament, which is that would happen in Vegas here, and that's a big aspect. But then they have the World Cup, which is 15s. If I had to put it, probably the 15s, probably the World Cup. But then you have rugby league and rugby union, and those have slightly different rules and playing styles too. And I don't even know the differences between those as well. And a lot of it goes back to is because we didn't grow up with it. It's not really a domestic sport. It's a foreign import.
It's so cool because I've known people who play. Like I remember going to college and be like, oh, I'm going to start playing rugby. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What the heck? And then
we had a lot of people, at least where I went to school in Pitt, and in Pennsylvania, I know a lot that they weren't good enough to get on the university's football team, so they would actually tell them to play rugby for a year, try out again. So that happens a lot in the United States. But as far as colleges go, some of the Northern California, like Cal Berkeley, and some of the Utah, I think it's just University of Utah. They have world-class programs nowadays. Yeah.
How'd you get into playing rugby?
I in high school, like I said, I did football. Didn't really fall in love with it. At the time, I worked actually at a gym, like a local gym, and one of the dudes came in there, played for there's a local team, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna try it, and I loved it, and found out after playing a couple years, I knew I wanted to go into healthcare field, decided on chiropractor, and my coach was like, hey, there's a school that does scholarships for that.
Oh.
And I kept playing, and that's I got into some of the select sides for the Midwest, and we got to travel just around the United States a lot, playing the different teams. So it was fun, and had a big chunk of my school paid for, which was nice too.
Wait, so Palmer has rugby as a sport. Are there any other sports that they have, or just rugby?
They have other sports, but they're not. I don't. They might be now. I could be wrong, but they're not like on a scholarship basis.
Oh,
yeah.
I never knew that.
There's only a couple schools in the United States. I think There's a Life University in Georgia.
Oh yeah, we had a colleague. Her husband went there.
Yeah, they have a great program down there, and there's a few undergrad schools like Cal Berkeley in California. They have a scholarship. I think actually, I could be wrong. I want to say Penn State. Their women's team was killer for a number of years, and I'm not sure if they had a scholarship on theirs for their program or not.
So then you would have 7s or 15s playing in college, or
we did
para?
15s.
Okay.
Yeah, we did 15s. We would do some 7s tournaments because I was a forward. So generally, the bigger guys aren't doing the 7s.
Okay.
But we would get the guys together in the off season and do a 7s tournament.
Ah. Yeah. So you would have 15 chiropractors.
Right. Yeah.
All playing
Yeah.
That's what you guys do for practice.
And that was kind of our quote unquote claim to fame was the other schools like Life. They had a couple chiropractic students on their team, but they had an undergraduate school associated with their program.
Okay.
So the majority of their team were people going for their undergrad degree. All players on our team were going to be chiropractors. Yeah, it was interesting. Anytime, it'd be funny, you get people that did like pop their shoulder out, dislocate a shoulder, and everyone wanted to set it.
Like the teammates.
Yeah. No, it's interesting because when you have a bunch of healthcare providers playing a sport, it's just interesting because you're all learning together, right? And you're going through that education process.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys probably had different years that were going through it, right?
Right, yeah. I mean, there's different trimesters, and the team was people that are going to graduate this trimester versus people just starting. And it was almost like I don't want to call it fraternity, but, a group that we could learn from each other. You learn from the older guys, they would teach younger guys. And then you just had so much practice working on soft tissue and athletic injuries as a result, because people were always injured,
Oh, that's funny. And it's cool, like, as you are learning through that stuff, it's like, it's way easier when you can apply something.
Yeah,
like, oh, yes, this happened to
exactly.
so-and-so. And
There's one thing to be sitting in a classroom and saying, okay, supraspinatus tear, here's how we're going to rehab it, this is what I recommend, this is what, versus it still hurts and it's not working.
What's funny too is I mean, people ask us sometimes, like, oh, you guys just like must do all these things. I'm like, nope, my body works just the same as you. I have to work on things as well. But I also notice as a patient, I'm terrible at describing what it is.
You'd be shocked to see my lumbar MRI. It's disgusting. I'm kind of embarrassed.
You're like that. You're like, that's my spine.
Right. Yeah. But what I do tell patients is, or people that ask is, for the most part, I do feel good after having all these injuries. Like, I have multiple blown discs. I have stenosis. I have Schmorl's nodes from rugby, from powerlifting, from just many injuries that I don't even know about over the years. And about, I'd say, 4 or 5 years ago, I had a really bad disc protrusion injury just from grabbing a kettlebell and starting to swing it without properly warming up, and that was my wake-up call. And it took me about 1.5 years, but I feel like I've gotten it under control, and as long as I'm smart about it and take my own advice and my own treatment regimen, I feel good. I feel real good.
That's good. What's a Schmorl's node, just for people who don't maybe
Where
not
the
know
end plate of the vertebra kind of pushes down in, for lack of a better word.
So what's something you've been working on, whether it's professionally, personally, physically, or mentally, that you're excited about?
This little guy, my daughter's 2 years old. It's really exciting watching them develop from this little blob of flesh and muscle and poop machine to my daughter, who's just almost 2.5 years old. She's jumping. She'll come to the gym with me, and I'll be doing some dumbbell press or something, and she'll grab this really light dumbbell and she'll start doing it. Or I'll do like burpees and she'll start kicking back and doing it. Or just the excitement that she has too. Her newest thing is jumping from our couch to the ottoman, and it's just it almost brings back some of my like childhood excitement doing, like, playing and just being silly with that kind of stuff. See how excited she gets doing stuff like that. That's what I'm excited about right now. Number one, because it's cool, and number two, because I don't have any time to get excited about anything else.
I love that. And what's something you commonly see in your practice or maybe your everyday life that you wish more people knew?
Oh my God, where to begin? I would say, the obvious things would be take care of your body, exercise, but to stem a little bit away from what we've been talking about this entire podcast is, your diet is probably one of the biggest blocks to your health, and sleep. And I can take that, I really appreciate a good night of sleep now after having these guys. And you really when you're having just average, typical 7-8 hours, 6-7-8 hours, just a normal cycle of sleep, whenever you don't get that and it's interrupted, you're getting 3 hours in a clip, 4 hours in a clip, or maybe 5 total broken up into 2 hours, 1 hours. and just how you feel and how you perform when you do go to the gym. It's a big piece of the puzzle, you know. And talking about patients of my own that are in car accidents, they'll say the same things like, I can't sleep, and I feel worse. I don't feel like I'm getting better. I was like, well, yeah, sleep's a big part of it all.
No, definitely. I think people undercut that too. Like they'll skimp on sleep for a long period of time, and then they get injured, and they're like, I don't know what happened.
Yeah. Then you ask them, they're like, how many hours do you sleep? I don't know, sleep 4 or 5 hours. Like, no, that's not how this works.
Yeah, exactly. Do you feel that's normal?
Yeah.
4 hours sleep.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And then, you know, I think everywhere, but especially in Nevada, everyone's dehydrated.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone. I'll get people, I drink a bottle, I drink 3 bottles of water a day. Okay, how much do you go to the bathroom? Maybe once or twice. I was like, you're not hydrated. You know?
I think what people don't realize too is, especially certain tissues, once they get dehydrated, since they don't have direct blood flow, I mean, you might be looking at weeks to get them up to an optimal amount of hydration.
Absolutely.
So you have one day where you get dehydrated, and that can affect you for weeks.
Totally.
And then that just happens to be like when you tear your knee or when you get a meniscus tear or something like that. So it's like, well, if you're spending all this time drying things out and you're like rubbing things together like sandpaper, like that's a big part.
And, you know, we can go back to what we were saying earlier, where looking at the big picture, like, people, you know, at the gym, I did this all the time. I do this all the time, and like, a lot of people wouldn't think to look at how much water you've been drinking, you know, and maybe you were doing it fine when you were hydrated, but things like you said, sandpaper together, something's gonna give.
What do you want to leave the listeners with?
You know, I think the big takeaway with things that I've learned in my career and just personal life over the last couple of years is number one, take advantage of the time you're given and the body that you're given, because it goes away pretty fast if you let it. And two, be proactive. Exercise is the best medicine. Nutrition is a big part of that puzzle. And over the years, those are the main points that I have found myself when my training or my health goes down a bad or not so optimal road. When I reassess those key points, come back to my nutrition, my hydration, my sleep, being proactive and not just trying to go out and destroy myself in a workout because I feel like I need to get a good workout versus I'm working out the proper way, is night and day. It's a big difference.
Definitely. And how can people find you?
You know, I'm not big on social media. I do have an Instagram that I post probably pictures of them once a month. Either that or, you know, I work for spinal rehab centers. My name's Dr. Moore. If you really want to find me, you can do that, or I'll just put my stuff on this.
Perfect.
We'll have it in the notes.
Yeah. Yep. I'm not big with social media. I'm sorry.
No, that's all good.
We really appreciate your time. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
We'd like to thank you for listening to La Vida Las Vegas podcast. We hope you enjoyed the time with our guests as much as we did. It would help us out so much if you could share, subscribe, or review our podcast or any combination of the three. Thanks again, and remember to take care of yourself.